Good morning. This morning, we have three distinguished guests that are going to speak about partnerships for water and how this impacts rural America. We're also going to talk about the economic impact, how what you do helps not only your community, but urban communities and the economy around the country. When we tell our story to the Hill and other people, it's important that we have that link. The whole national dialogue you hear everywhere, from restaurants you go to all on the news, is absolutely dominated by the economy and jobs. And I ask, what resonates more right now when you're talking about a rifle shot for water infrastructure, or if you talk about what that water infrastructure did to create and sustain jobs? So we're going to get into that a little bit. I mean, that's what we keep hearing about, the impact of health care on jobs. Airports, highway constructions, student aid, agriculture, trade policy. So we're going to talk about what you do and to make that link. Even the military bases that are being served by Pat in California, supporting our soldiers. The businesses that are being impacted and held up in rural America that provides, equipment and services to our urban counterparts. The vast amount of energy production that's created in rural America, like in North Dakota, the amounts of water that's provided there. So that's what we're also going to focus on. I'm going to read briefly the bios of these folks, and we'll start it up. And we want to have an interaction with you so you can help us tell this story. Bob Freudenthal is the Executive Director of the Tennessee Association of Utility Districts. Bob has been serving as Executive Director since 2008. The association is concerned with the promotion and advancement of utility operations in the state of Tennessee, including water, sewage disposal, and natural gas. The primary achievement of this mission is through education, advocacy, operations, and financial assistance. Bob began his public service career as a building inspector for the city of Hendersonville. I believe that's in Kentucky. Tennessee, I'm sorry. Eventually becoming the Public Works Director in 1988. In 2001, he became the Director of the Public Works for the city of Paducah, Kentucky, serving for 3 years before accepting the position of Deputy General Manager for Hendersonville Utility District in 2004. Bob is an active member of many professional associations, including the American Public Works Association, serving on APWA Board of Directors for 9 years, and as the APWA President from 2005-2006. The American Planning Association, where he served as chairman, also served as chairman of the Hendersonville Regional Planning Commission and ASAE. Dr. Alexander Moray is the research agriculture economist in the Resource and Economics Development Division of ERS, which is basically the think tank research arm of agriculture. His research covers topics in the area of labor markets, education, migration, wealth creation, which is an important topic today, in rural communities and regions, and has appeared in the American Journal of Agriculture Economics, Review of Agriculture Economics, Community Development, and Amber Waves. Alex is chair-elect of the Community Economics Network, a group of rural community economic development researchers in the Agriculture and Applied Economics Association. He holds a PhD in Agriculture and Resource Economics from Oregon State University. And Jacqueline Ponte Lazarth, who we fondly refer to as Ms. Ponte, was appointed as the Assistant Administrator for Rural Development's Water Environmental Programs in January 2008. In that role, she administers the loan and grant programs that all of you are familiar with in communities with populations of 10,000 or less. Under her leadership, the program has invested more than $10 billion in loans and grants and provided the technical assistance that we administer. The program also, as a result, more than 15 million rural residents will benefit from increased access to reliable and sustainable water. The Rural Development Water and Waste Program has been recognized as OMB as one of the leading, effectively run federal programs with a portfolio of more than 18,000 loans totaling $12 billion and less than 1% delinquency rate. From 2009 to 2010, she also led the implementation of the Recovery Act for all rural development programs, through which more than $20 billion in loans and grants for rural infrastructure, community facilities, housing, and business development was invested. Ms. Bonnie Lazark previously served as the Rural Development Assistant Administrator for the Telecommunications Program from 2006 to 2008, promoting and supporting rural broadband. Ms. Bonnie Lazark has been in public service for 21 years and is a graduate of James Madison University in rural Virginia. She left one thing off her bio, and she is the new proud mother of Abigail Marie, and I believe this is her first official business trip since her maternity leave, and she decided to come see you folks. John Pedalino, where are you? I can't see. Okay, there you are. John Pedalino is the acting administrator of Rural Utility Service. He previously served in other positions, as you all heard yesterday, even chief of staff for the undersecretary. He also served as the administrator of Rural Business Service. He has an extensive background. Started working in the ditches in Texas on water systems, became an attorney representing that district, and has worked his way up. He actually has touched and felt what you go through. And so I'm going to ask him to come forward and make opening remarks.
Thank you, Bill. Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
We're going to have to try that again. Good morning, everyone. I know those coffee machines are a little difficult to use out there, but let's get some pep and let's get this morning started right. It's terrific to be here with you all at the WaterPro conference this year. It's actually my 4th year to attend the WaterPro conference, and you heard Bill talk about the numerous roles I've had at rural development and in the water industry. And I've been a part of the water industry for almost 20 years in different capacities, so it's good to be here today, and I've always loved to be with the folks at the Rural Water Association. But today it's my pleasure to speak with you all as the acting administrator of the Rural Utilities Service. Bill said, I think you said I held 5 positions within USDA, 4 of those in rural development. 1, I did a brief stint as Deputy General Counsel. Some might think, geez, this guy can't hold the job down. And the other day I was in Secretary Vilsack's office, and he said, so John, what job is this for you? What number is it? I'm like, I'm on number 5, sir. I said, but you can think of me like the LeBron James of USDA. I can play all 5 positions. So he said, the next one, are you going to go on ESPN and announce where you're going? I said, yes, sir, I'm going to South Beach. But I don't think South Beach is rural America, and rural America is where I like to be. And so it's good to be, a part of the rural development mission area. And it's good to be back with the Rural Utility Service as the administrator. I know I'm preaching to the choir when I say that infrastructure is what makes possible all of the development and growth of our rural communities, the development and growth that these communities need to remain viable well into the future. We're talking about sustainable economic development, and that's what the panel's going to talk about today. And I just thought I'd share with you, Bill mentioned I previously served as the Rural Business Administrator, and that's one of the 3 agencies in the rural development mission area. And their focus is on helping those job creators out there, those small businesses that are out in the communities that you all serve. And, I got to travel around the country over the 5 months I was the administrator, from coast to coast, from north to south. And I think every business I talk to, very appreciative of the work that USDA is doing. They're very appreciative of the work that their community banks are doing to provide those loans to these businesses so they can grow and prosper in the rural communities where they reside. But the one thing that was clear to me, probably because I always, when I drive down the road, I always look, where's the hydrant, so I know where the water main's at. And those of you all who are water operators out there, you know what I'm talking about. And so when I'm at these manufacturing facilities, I kind of watch the process and just see them using water. And I can think of there's a meat processing facility in Wisconsin that supplies almost 20% of the sausages across the country. They own 20% of the market, little rural town in Wisconsin. And the gentleman who started this company, he came off the dairy farm, went to school, got a PhD, started a business after, working for different companies over a couple decades. And now he's employing 200-300 people out in this little town in Wisconsin. And as he takes me through his meat processing facility and really shows me how the sausage is made, all I can think about, and I talk to him about, is, well, you couldn't have done this if you didn't have access to clean, safe drinking water. And he says, that's right, John. That's a business that wouldn't be there without the work that you all do. I was in Colorado visiting a potato processing facility. And these guys, they're friends, two farmers. Their families were struggling in the farm credit crisis in the 80s. So they've seen the economy go up and down. They've seen farm revenues go up and down. And they really started focusing on potatoes. And at the stores nowadays, you see the fingerling potatoes. And these were the guys who really brought it to the market here in the United States. And so now they're expanding their processing facilities. So not only can they process their potatoes, but everybody this is in the San Luis Valley in Colorado. They're out near Alamosa. And I talked to them, say, well, you couldn't expand this processing facility without clean, safe drinking water, could you? No, John, we couldn't do that. We need water. We need water to do that. And just about a month and a half ago or so, I was in Alabama, in one of the towns that was destroyed by those horrible tornadoes that started right outside of Tuscaloosa and kind of worked their way on a northwest track. And this town was almost demolished. I mean, the main street was gone. But the town is rebuilding because that's what we do in America. We rebuild. And I was there to actually announce a water project, and that's where they knew where they needed to start. They needed to take care of the infrastructure before they could bring back the businesses. And it was a pleasure to talk with those folks there. So that's going to be the discussion of the panel today, and that's why you all serve such a vital role in this economy as we are growing ourselves out of the Great Recession. It all starts with water, and so it's really a privilege to be here as the Rural Utilities Administrator, where we walk in partnership with you all to help bring America back, to help improve our infrastructure, to help provide clean, safe drinking water, not only to our residents, to the people who need it every day just to take a bath, to live and prosper, but to those businesses out there. So what better place to be than the Rural Utility Service, where we finance modern, advanced water, electric, and telecommunications infrastructure. And as you know, and what I just explained, water is where it all begins. We're extremely proud of our water and waste disposal loan and grant programs. In partnership with community leaders and industry experts like National Rural Water Association's members and your outstanding circuit riders, we have invested in almost 4,000 water and wastewater infrastructure projects since the start of the Obama administration in 2009. Think about that, 4,000 projects that are expanding, improving, developing their water and waste infrastructure so they have a little extra capacity, so that when that business is looking to relocate to that town and they ask, hey, because that's the first question they're going to ask. On that first page of their checklist, do you have an adequate supply of water from my facility? And these 4,000 projects will be able to say yes. And not only that, but they've helped safeguard the health of 11 million rural residents and have created or saved almost 300,000 jobs. So think about that as part of economic development. What if we didn't have this funding? What if we didn't do what you all are doing? We wouldn't be able to disinfect the water. Folks would end up getting sick. They'd end up missing their days at work. Their kids wouldn't be at school. Their education would be hampered. And it's all because of the work that you all do that doesn't happen, that they're able to show up at work, that they're able to show up at school, and they're able to have access to clean, safe drinking water. Our assistant administrator, Jackie Ponte, is here today to provide you with the specifics of the program's accomplishments for 2012 and where we're headed in 2013. But I can tell you, even with the challenges we face of reduced program funds and fewer internal resources, we had a successful fiscal year 2012, and we plan to have another successful year in 2013. Just last year, we did over 1,200 loans and grants, totaling $1.4 billion in new investments in critical water and waste infrastructure. And through your efforts, we provided technical assistance to rural communities through more than 48,000. And when I read this, 48,000 circuit rider visits, I mean, that's almost 1,000 visits a week. That's amazing. The assistance you all provide to people, that's incredible. Thank you all so much, and thank you for the work you've done, helping your neighbors, helping your fellow communities, your neighboring communities, when they've been impacted by natural disasters. You know, the Undersecretary talked yesterday how you all are many times the first responders, showing up with not just a generator, but tons of generators to help these communities out. And now we're facing and recovering from and still working through the challenges of the drought that's impacted almost every rural county in America. And we'll be counting on you all here at the National Rural Water Association and the circuit riders to play an important part in that effort. Last week, Secretary Vilsack announced a number of regional listening sessions that we'll be hosting over the next month or two to get feedback from communities. And I encourage you all, as you hear about that in the press, to make an effort, whether it's your State Rural Water Association, the circuit riders, or even the water and waste systems that are here, to attend those meetings if you can. Let your voice be heard. Talk to the folks there. Let them know what your needs are so they can bring that to Washington and we can start putting some of those ideas into policies and programs in the future. For next year, we don't know yet what the full funding levels will be, but rural development is proactively looking for ways to improve the way we operate and achieve our mission with fewer resources. The Undersecretary spoke yesterday about some of our efforts, and in my new role as administrator, I hope to facilitate new efficiencies and approaches that will be necessary to continue to serve rural America as we have for 75 years, and so that we can continue to serve rural America for the next 75 years. I look forward to working with all of you in the year ahead. I hope you all enjoy the rest of today's programs. Hope you enjoy today's panel discussion. Thank you all very much.
Thank you, John. You know, I never get used to stand up with these bright lights. It reminds me of a lineup. And that's why I didn't get a tattoo when I was younger. But, anyway, next I'm going to ask Jackie Ponte to come up, please.
Good morning. How are y'all this morning? Everybody have good sessions yesterday, I hope. I want to thank everybody who attended the session on energy efficiency. I think it went really well, so thank you for your attendance and thank you for all your questions. Excellent session. As our administrator noted, I'm here today to give you an update on what we've done and where we're heading in the year ahead. And I think you'll hear over and over again today, you know, it is more critical now than ever that we continue to invest in our rural water and waste infrastructure. It's critical not only to create jobs now and into the future, but it's critical for the economy, both rural and national. And so as we go through our presentations, I hope you'll see that theme. I hope you'll take that theme back to your communities and get that message out across all of the offices in Washington, D.C. Why is it important to invest? There are estimates saying that we'll have needs of over $1 trillion in water and waste infrastructure. We're a subcomponent of that. And rural development, as the administrator noted, has significant investments. Since 2002, we've invested over $18 billion. And with the Recovery Act funds, it's the most significant investment in the shortest period of time ever for our agency. Most of you know who we are. We're part of the Rural Utility Service. We are the Water and Environmental Programs, and we do a whole host of programs exclusively focused on communities of 10,000 or fewer. That's important to note that because there are partners that we work with who fund other larger projects and some smaller projects, but we are the only federal agency that focuses exclusively on the needs of smaller systems. And because of the way the system is designed, the smallest and the communities of most need tend to get in line and get funded first. So you can see from the slide, more than half of our projects are to communities serving populations of 1,500 or less. That's important. 82% of the projects we did last year were to communities of 5,000 or less. That's important. These are FY 2011 numbers. We're running the 2012 numbers. We're just finishing up our fiscal year, but the trend is the same year to year. We tend to do smallest communities, and we never quite hit that 10,000 mark that we're restricted to in the statute. As the administrator noted, we had a terrific FY 2012. We're very excited about the progress we were able to make with the funds that Congress was able to provide to us. With the interest rates as low as they've been, we were able to put out a significant amount of loans. 72% of the funds we put out were for loans. Those are dollars that will not only invest in the infrastructure, but they'll be repaid with interest to the federal government. So your tax dollars will come back to the federal government and be used for other purposes, and hopefully back into this program into future years. We invested $1.4 billion this year. We, as the administrator noted, lots and lots of technical assistance, not only through the Circuit Rider program, but through our technical assistance and training grants, of which rural water is a recipient of those funds as well. Critical component to our programs. What makes this program work as well as it does is the combination of the financing and the technical assistance. That's a message we've been telling in DC and across the country. It's important to us to have those two working in concert. We also advanced our sustainability initiative. As we move forward and dollars become fewer, it's important that systems are able to sustain themselves for longer periods of time, and that taxpayers' dollars are well invested. We set a goal for ourselves to ensure that the portfolio is not only strong from a delinquency perspective, but that our financial ratios are showing that the systems are financially sustainable. With the information that was entered in this system, we are well onto our way of reaching that 100% sustainability. We're over 90% with the information that was entered. I know that every year we ask for your audit information. If you have not provided your audit information, I encourage you to provide your audit information to your local RD office. It's important. It's one of the ways we can say to Congress, look, this is a great program, these are great borrowers. They not only borrow the money, use it wisely, but they pay us back and they stay financially solvent throughout the process. Those reports that you submit go into the sustainability figure, and we use it as we go throughout the year. So where are we heading with our Recovery Act projects? We had a great year on Recovery Act projects. We've really been moving through them. As you heard the Undersecretary say yesterday, 96% of them are either to bid or beyond. That is incredibly great. We are on schedule for where we thought we'd be. We do have a few projects that are still in design, a small number of them, and if you are one of those projects, we encourage you to move that project into construction as quickly as possible. If that project is not going to be able to finish by 2015, we ask that you return those dollars, and we'll work with you again in the future on your project. 270 projects already completed, and monies distributed back to those projects from the agency, jobs already created, and benefits being received from residents in those communities. It's a good thing. We've got another 441 projects on the way to completion, and we expect to be dispersed well above our current 50% level at the end of this spring. So what does the future look like for us in 2013? We're going to continue to invest. We know it's important to invest in water and waste infrastructure. We're going to be addressing our backlog. We still have a significant backlog of applications. If you have not gotten into the queue for funding, and you haven't gotten into the queue for funding because you were worried our backlog was too large, please don't wait. Please put your application into the queue. We'll see what we can do for you. But if we do not have applications in the queue, there's no way for us to articulate that to the Hill to say, yes, we need money. Here are people who are local leaders, know what they need, are ready to invest in their infrastructure, and are prepared to do so with our funding. We are also keeping a close eye on our portfolio. As you heard, our portfolio is over $12 billion at this point, and we will have many Recovery Act loans closing in this year and next year. And so it's important that that portfolio stays strong, the taxpayers' dollars get returned, and so we will be continuing our efforts to strongly monitor it and make sure that, that the losses are minimal, if non-existent. Very important this year will be the census implementation. I know everybody's been kind of waiting to hear when we might be implementing the 2010 census numbers. It looks like we will be doing that after the end of this CR. That'll be our current instructions. That instruction hopefully will come out today or tomorrow at the national office. But until then, we're going to continue to use the 2000 census numbers. If you have questions about census, feel free to track me down or track Steve Saunier down, who is here, our branch chief in our portfolio management branch. We'd be happy to talk to you about it. There were changes in population as a result of the 2010 census. And there's also a change in the data that was collected in the 2010 census. So there wasn't income data, and there's a new source for the income data. It's still a census source, but it's not the traditional one. So happy to talk more about that, and Steve Saunier's presentation will touch on that tomorrow. Of course, we'll be watching the Farm Bill and working with Congress as they go through and providing technical assistance in that process, and hope to have a Farm Bill, I don't know where Bill went, sometime soon. And then continuing our sustainability initiative, things like the energy efficiency effort we're doing, and then updating our regulations, as the administrator said. We're going to focus again on build out of our projects and our regularly funded projects. And then under the continuing resolution, initially, we will reserve our funds for emergencies and cost overruns. And this year, we'll be focusing on projects that are addressing the drought. They will get priority in the process. And so initially, we'll have limited funding, but as soon as we have enough funding to allocate to the states, we will. One special note, our solid waste management and TAT grants this year, the window opens October 1st. We have some priority points this year that can be assigned if your project is to serve a colonia or a substantially underserved trust area, or what we call our 15 by 45 by 15 project. If your project, if you want to have a technical assistance and training grant or solid waste management grant in an area where 45% of the children are on the National School Lunch Program, we would get extra priority points in the process. So we're hoping that folks will sign up for that. We're always looking for new applicants to that program, and you get extra points if you're a new applicant. With that, I'll end my remarks and we'll hand it over. I just want to say thank you very much. Bill is right. It is my first trip away, but everyone has been very supportive and cordial, and this is an important job that we do. I'm proud to be part of this program. I am very happy to be working with all of you and look forward to working with you this coming year. Thank you.
Thank you, Jackie. Now we're going to shift to Dr. Murray from ERS.
Great, thank you very much. Well, it's a pleasure to be here with all of you. I'm a water rookie, but I hope I can provide some economic context for you, how the rural economy is doing. What that means, I think, is that I'm going to have to depress you, but there are some good notes that we'll touch on towards the end, which I think give hope for how the rural economy will do in the coming years. I work for the Economic Research Service at USDA, and our mission is to provide good quality data and analysis to USDA, other public and private decision makers about issues related to agriculture, food, the environment, and the rural economy. And so part of our task is to track how the rural economy is doing. It just struck me as I was listening to the opening remarks that what you all do, water, is so integral to the rural economy. I mean, it's not just about attracting industries with water resources, it's also about rural people and their health and productivity. So it's critical what you do. To provide some context of rural America, I always like to use these figures. The rural population is about 15 to 20% of the total US population. But in terms of land area, rural America is 80% of the US. Okay, so any issues related to natural resources, food, agriculture, fiber, fuel, water, it's going to deal with rural America, and that's why rural America is so critical to the national economy. Okay, now, in terms of recent rural economic trends, the dominating event, of course, has been the Great Recession, which lasted officially from 2007 to 2009. But I know that, the effects are still being felt all across the country and in almost every place. Now, we've had 5 recessions since 1980 in the nation, and the 2007 recession was the longest of those past 5 recessions. It lasted 18 months and had the highest unemployment rate except for the 1981 recession. We had a 10% unemployment in 2009. Now, of course, one of the major causes of the recession was the housing bubble. Home values, of course, collapsed, and because for a lot of, especially middle-income people, where their net worth is tied up into home equity, we saw median household worth go down by about 40% across the recession. So this recession has been really severe, probably something I don't need to tell all of you. Now, of course, there's the bad news. What has it meant for rural America? Well, poverty in rural America has always been higher than in urban places in America. And the poverty rate, we just got the most recent figures, unfortunately, are kind of a lag, but they're in 2010, were released this month, and rural poverty was at 17%. Okay, by contrast, in urban America, the poverty rate was 14.6%. So not only has the rural poverty rate increased quite a bit, but the gap between the poverty rate in rural and urban America has increased as well. Job growth has been slower in rural America than it has been in urban America. Job growth is in rural places is at 2.1% below its peak in 2007 in urban America, and in rural America that figure is 3.2%. Another factor is the population slowdown, and this is something we're still trying to understand, again, because the data is pretty lagged. But there was somewhat of a rural rebound in the 1990s where the rural population grew by about 5.3 million people. And during the 2000s, between 2000 and 2010, that figure dropped to 2.2 million. And it seems to be mainly a result of a decrease in what we call takes fertility or births minus deaths, so we call that natural increase. So some of it's that, and some of it has been really a lack of in-migration into rural areas. So fewer people seem to be moving in general and into rural areas from urban areas. Now you put all of that against the backdrop of the fact that the rural population tends to be somewhat older, have lower levels of educational attainment, and you see that the rural economy has suffered a lot. But there have been some positive notes. First of all, if you owned a home, it was probably better for you to own that home in rural America than urban America over the 2007 to 2009 recession. And that's simply because the housing market really collapsed in urban and suburban America, but the further you get away from cities, the less of an effect we saw on rural housing prices. And indeed, it seems like we've hit rock bottom in terms of housing prices. The latest data out from the second quarter of 2012 shows that in both rural and in urban America, the long descent housing prices have taken since 2007 are finally hit rock bottom and look to be increasing a little bit. Interestingly, even though job growth has been pretty meager in rural areas, unemployment has been somewhat better in rural areas compared to urban areas. And I think that's due to a couple of things. First of all, the two major industries that have done fairly well relative to other industries during the recession were agriculture and natural resource extraction. So those would be things like mining and logging. And since many rural communities, that's their lifeblood, employment has been pretty good in those industries and has helped many rural communities. So there are some bright spots, and it looks like we are turning the corner a bit. I just want to also plug quickly something we do every year. We publish a brochure called Rural America at a Glance. It's on our website, ers.usda.gov. And if you go there, you can download this, and it shows you all the recent economic trends. And our most recent one for 2012 should be coming out in another month or two, which just in time for 2013. But the good news is that all the data will be up to date, and you'll get a good sense of what's happening in rural America. And finally, I don't have any power on Capitol Hill, but just listening as an economist to the remarks that have already been made, this wealth creation idea is, I think, really important. In economics, we've always known that all kinds of capital contribute to economic growth and sustainable development. And so it's not just about jobs in the short term. What you do is help provide built infrastructure, water systems that lead to economic growth into the future. And I think that's a powerful economic argument to make for what you do. So thanks for your time.
Dr. Murray, thank you. Now we're going to ask Bob Fugenthal, our host from the great state of Tennessee, to come forward.
Well, good morning. Welcome to the great state of Tennessee. Hope you're having fun. Hope you enjoy yourselves. You're a little late in the game, but I'll try to help you out anyway. Tennessee is a bilingual state. We speak English and Southern. If you're having difficulty either way, we do have translators in the lobby. For those of you from the South where I'm from, Jackie and Alex say, hey, things is good. Good Lord willing, they're going to get better. If you don't have your program in, bless your sweetheart, get it on in. TAUD is the oldest association in the country. We represent water, wastewater, and natural gas public utilities in Tennessee. We have over 400 members, which is roughly 96% of the utilities represented, as Bill said in my intro. We do that through education, advocacy, and support. That's how we build our folks up. Something I want to say to you right now that I say everywhere I go in my state, thank you. Thank you for what you do every day. You improve the quality of life in your community, and that's a good thing. If nobody else says it, thank you. We stay active with 6 conferences, 11 regions that we meet once a quarter and talk about things over lunch. We do over 100 training activities throughout the year. We provide technical assistance and support through circuit riders and EPA. We do advocacy, and we're going to talk about that here in just a little bit, and we do assistance services, be it for financial, for cross-connection, for private instruction, for mapping, and anything else we can do to help our systems improve their product. This year in our legislature, every year in our legislature, we try to do a day on the Hill, like many of you do, where we try to reach out to the legislators, talk about who we are, what we do, who our people are, and why we do this business. This year, our creative staff back at the office of Colleen Keehee and Beth Blackwell got together, and we created in the brochure, I think there's at least 2 on each table. I want you to, if you can, take a look at that at some time in the future. We decided to try to take the issue that we all hear about all the time, and it's about jobs. Jobs in this field, jobs in that field, jobs in the rural, jobs in the urban. It truly is a bipartisan issue, and it's truly one that goes from state, local, to federal. So this year, we kind of took a focus on just food. In Tennessee, we like to eat. We like to eat often, as you can probably tell by me, and we enjoy that time. We produce a lot of food. And we were surprised when we did that. Our staff went together and essentially went to chambers of commerce, went to the state employment office, went to state ECD, and got numbers together. And that brochure this year, it says we wanted to tap into the taste of Tennessee. If you look on that, you'll see utilities in alphabetical order that provide either water, wastewater, or natural gas service to these facilities. There are some large in there as well. They're all members of our association. But 20 of the 26 utilities on this page are less than 15,000 customers strong. That's 80% of them. 10 of them have less than 5,000, with the smallest serving 793 customers. Our point was that these people, these 26 utilities, help create over 55,000 jobs in the state of Tennessee. In not what we do, but what we provide. That's vitally important to who we are. We know what Tennessee did as far as bringing Volkswagen in or bringing Hemlock in. Our question to the legislature and our question to the congressional delegation is, what's it worth to you to bring 40,000 jobs to the state of Tennessee? We help you do that. We were here before you brought them here. You couldn't bring them here unless we were here. We believe in you. Please, please believe in us. That was our message. It's pure and simple. This year, we're going to try to focus on the automotive end. We have Nissan's national headquarters here in Tennessee. We have several manufacturing plants across the Tennessee. We have several subsidiary plants across the state of Tennessee, whether it be engines or belts or components or windows or whatever. We're going to do the same thing and preach the same message. What we're not going to lose focus on is that we are vital for Tennessee and we're vital for the economic impact of our state and of this country. If you look on our brochure, you'll see our tagline. It says, "Vital for Tennessee's future." We believe that to the core. We say that all the time. We believe that rural America, rural water, is vital for America's future. We believe it's vital for the economy, and we believe it's vital for them. Water, as you all know, is the new oil in today's world. In emerging countries, it's becoming more and more of an issue. In emerging areas in the Middle East, water conservation and innovation are driving everything. I submit to you the same is true in rural America, and we can do this. But we've got to bring the focus in on what's really important. What's really important is jobs. One way to put it to an elected official, bless their sweet heart, every job is filled by a person who has the potential to be a registered voter. Don't you think you ought to help them? Thank you.
Thank you, Bob. We'd like to open up to the audience for some questions and just have an interaction. Does anybody have any questions for the panel? Yes. Yes, sir. Did y'all hear the question?
Yes. Yeah, the question was, what's the criteria for determining a recession? And the one that economists and the government use is determined by a committee of people in Cambridge, Massachusetts, actually, who look at economic growth and other indicators and decide when the recession starts and finishes. What that leaves out, of course, is unemployment, which is what most people, how they feel a recession, you know, when the unemployment rate goes up. And after every recession, unemployment is the last thing to pick up. Firms are really reluctant to hire people when they're getting right out of a recession. So the official definition is when the economy in general, when the economy grows at a positive rate for 2 quarters, and we've been doing that, but it's very sluggish, and the unemployment rates are still, you know, quite high.
We need some more questions, how to do this economically. There's several. Y'all gonna have to speak loud. Right over here. Okay, I'm gonna pose a question to Jackie Pawnee, and then we'll, I can't see if anybody wants to be recognized right now. Jackie, on the economic link that everybody's talking about here, how does that help you when you develop your budget with the Office of Management and Budget, which you're responsible for, and even interacting with Capitol Hill?
So, when we develop our budget, we're competing with other funds, and that competition is getting tighter and tighter. And so, evidence of a need and evidence of past dollars actually producing the results that we want, job creation, wealth creation, industries growing in the area, and better health of communities are all components that we use as we go into the process. So when we sit down inside the agency and then with OMB and ultimately with the Hill, as they ask questions, all of those components factor in. So it's important. It's important to tell that story. It's important for us to be able to say, you know, yes, we are helping rural America. Yes, there is still demand for these dollars, and yes, they're needed more than ever at the interest rates we can offer them and with the loan and grant combinations that we're able to offer them.
And Mike Keegan, please stand up.
Is the mic,
Mike's got the microphone here, so if anybody wants to be recognized, please raise your hand.
is the mic on?
Yeah.
I am standing. Bill? Clap if you think that was funny.
Sorry, Mike.
It's applause for Mike Keegan.
Right here.
You've told us about a lot of money that's available and trying to get people to do projects. You know, we need to mention also that 40%, according to statistics, 40% of that money is being borrowed from somebody, possibly China. And I noticed also I'm on small rural water, and we get letters through the mail soliciting us, trying to get us to do a project so we can get a loan. How can we continue to borrow 40% of this money and then give it away in grants and loans and then survive as a nation?
Well, I think that's why they're having some of the discussions we're having up on the Hill today. I can't really speak to those specifically. What I can tell you as you go forward as community leaders, you'll make those determinations as to when it's a smart time for you to invest, whether it's our money, other financing. We want you to continue to invest in rural America, and we want to be able to provide it through our program at rates that are reasonable so that you can keep your user rates at a reasonable level. We all know that the rate for purchasing water and sewer services in rural America is significantly higher than in urban. So as Congress determines how we move forward through the economic crunch here, we're going to continue to help as best we can with the dollars that they're able to provide.
Mike? Bill? Might also point out that the federal programs are certainly worthwhile, but they're not the only avenue. There are private sources through public bond, through bank placement. The reality of it is, if you have a system, sooner or later you're going to spend some money on it, and its infrastructure and its makeup. The prudent thing is obviously to be wise stewards of what you have, but there are times when you may in fact have to borrow. Most of us had to borrow when we bought a house. This is just as important as a house. Where we get that money and where the best source is one that's an individual decision, but there's certainly other options besides the federal program.
Dr. Rainier?
Jackie, this is directed to you. As you know, I'm interested in energy efficiency, and it's a bit of a carryover from our panel yesterday, but I wonder if you could speak to the idea that if a system can show or is interested in improving their energy efficiency, should they let you know that, and will that help them in obtaining RUS or RD money or support?
Sure. So we talked a little bit yesterday about energy efficiency, and this goes back to being good stewards of your system, and really trying to address the financing of systems. So if there's a way to reduce costs, we want you to look into that. It makes you more able to sustain service over the long run. It can be done in small ways through just an energy audit, very basic review of how you're using energy. Yesterday, what we heard was Department of Energy has more advanced resources to come in and help you determine whether there's a technology that you might want to implement in your systems to produce energy locally at the plant to save money on energy costs. Certainly, if you have a need and you are in the design process and you're updating your infrastructure, we want you to consider that as part of your project, and we certainly would consider funding it as part of the project. Talk to your state office, rural development state office or area office about it. If for some reason you feel you're not getting heard, which I doubt, our state offices are outstanding, just let us know. This is a big push for us this year. We'd really like to see some energy efficiency projects. We've seen more and more over the last few years. So let us know, and yes, we would be looking for those kinds of actions. Our hope, too, is that we will be able to continue our work with the Department of Energy and maybe somehow secure some funds from them and partner them with our funds. But we're not quite there yet. We're building that relationship, and your participation yesterday in the panel, I think, will help Department of Energy's understanding of how important the connection is between our rural water systems and their funding.
Yes, sir.
Jim Smith from Kentucky. Many people in this room may know the answer to this question already, but I've often wondered, as I've been recipient of grant monies through RD, and this is for Jackie, I suppose, and you mentioned earlier when you were talking that you look for payback on those loans, and it's a good thing. And I'm wondering how those grants are administered. Some years we can qualify for 25%, maybe 35%, up to 45%. And are those grants administered in such a way to fix it at a point to where there is a payback on those loans overall throughout the nation on RD loans?
Yes, the water and waste programs, the way they work, they're needs-based. We look first to see what level of loan you can afford to take and keep your rates at a reasonable level. And then we look to supplement with grant. As I said, 72% of the monies that went out last year were in loan. And a lot of that has to do with our interest rates. They're low right now, and they're going to stay low at least for the next quarter. So it is a good time to, if you're looking to borrow funds, it's a good time in our program to borrow.
There's a question up here, Mike.
This question is for Jackie. The ERA money flushed out a significant part of the backlog water and waste projects. Has there been any recent assessment of the backlog across the country in water and waste projects? And if not, given the seriousness of the drought, is that something either our state associations or National Rural Water should be working on to help you identify the needs that are out there, and perhaps through the Farm Bill some additional funding could be made available?
Thank you, Jim. We have what we have in our application queue that tells us the immediate demand for our program dollars. We also have the Environmental Protection Agency's needs survey, the most recent needs survey. You're right that the drought has changed the equation for some communities. And we will, as you heard from the Undersecretary yesterday, we're going to be looking to the rural water associations and our circuit riders to identify communities that may be impacted by the drought and to direct them to us to see if we can provide assistance and help with a better understanding of what additional need might be out there. So yes.
Okay, my question is for Jackie also. Some utilities don't pay for this infrastructure improvement via rates because we use a user pay principle, and we pay for it with impact fees, and it makes a problem when trying to get these loans. And I was just wondering in the audience here, how many use impact fees to pay for expanding their water systems? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So there's a number out there. But anyways, is USD DA gonna try and address that problem? Because right now we're basically not able to get loans because of that, because we don't increase the rates to pay for any infrastructure. We use impact fees.
I think it's really not a USDA-focused issue. I think if you're going to invest in your infrastructure, at some point you have to consider raising rates and how you get from point A to point B. We are looking at budget cuts. There'll be limited grant available for projects, and so I think we're all kind of in that same boat. It really comes down to a community decision and what it's worth at your community level, what it's worth at the state level, to make sure that there's good, reliable, modern water and waste infrastructure. I personally think the investment is worthwhile. I understand that it can be costly. And I understand that, you know, when you look at the statistics that the doctor here has presented, sometimes it's harder to make those investments. We'll keep working together to figure out the best way we can assist and see as we can identify as many other avenues as possible to defray some of that cost.
Many of the systems now do a combination of rates and fees. Your rates cover your basic service and your monthly operation, but there are tap fees, there are capacity fees, they're called a lot of times in Tennessee, for example. And those augment the impact of development on the existing system. They don't necessarily cover the entire cost of expansion or maintenance, but they certainly help defray that. And everybody then, quote unquote, pays their fair share. Certainly that's all part of the overall picture, excuse me, of financial management, but in regards to that being the only thing, I think anytime you go into major debt consideration or that, you have to look at your rate structure, you have to look at your rate sustainability.
That's a question over here.
My name is Darrell Thompson, and I represent a native village in the southwest coast of Alaska. And this is probably to Jackie. We have $6 million in grants awarded to us through RSRD and Village Safe Water. And these grants were awarded in 2006, and we've been still trying to access the construction money. We're both at 100% design and 95% design for replacement of aging infrastructure. And it seems like it just goes on. And what's happening is the funds that we had allocated or asked for in 2005, the cost of this work is now triple from the cost it was then. So it's been kind of a long fight, and we're getting close. But your office in Alaska is working with us, but it seems like 5 or 6 years to implement the money. It seems like a long time.
Thanks for the question. We have a special program, for those of you who don't know, called the Rural Alaskan Village Grant Program. Monies are set aside for that by Congress every year. I understand your frustration over some of delay you might have experienced, but 2 years ago we went up, and the now administrator in his prior role helped us as we worked out a new process for that grant program with all of the funding partners in the state of Alaska and with the IHS and ANTHC, 2 organizations that we work with to build infrastructure out there. And so that process is moving along quite nicely. What we ask that you do is continue to work with our state office. Those projects that are now getting funded, you know, we're requiring you to, just like we do for all of the other water projects, to file a full application with a full PER, ensure that the project has a plan to move forward and that those projects get built. And we have confidence now that projects are getting built. Like everywhere else, there are limited funds there, but the state of Alaska does have a significant chunk of grant funds for this very needy cause, more so than I think in other states. So we'll continue to work with you as best we can, and continue to work with Tasha up there in our Alaska office.
Morning, panel. Thank you very much for your time this morning. My name is Jim Phillip from Arkansas Rural Water. My question's for the economists, sir. USDA measures the results of projects using quantitative methods, or any qualitative methods or models used to measure the satisfaction of dollars spent per rural individual.
Could you repeat the question, please?
Yes, sir. Basically, USDA measures the results of projects using quantitative methods. Are any methods or models used to measure the satisfactions, any qualitative methods used to measure the satisfaction of dollars spent per rural individual?
So my agency, our mission is really to provide the kind of foundational and context information about how the rural economy is doing. We don't evaluate other agencies' programs. I am familiar with, at least I think it's called the CBAS program in rural development, which looks at models the jobs created, but other than that, it's really kind of outside my area of expertise.
Come on, folks, y'all gotta have a question. How are y'all doing the economic link out in the field? What are the stories you're telling? That would be helpful.
Well, because I have a microphone, conveniently, I did have a question, but I'd like to preface it with a compliment. And that is on the USDA's presentation about your sustainability criteria or measurement. And we spend a lot of time with various federal agencies talking about sustainability. And it seems we've had this interminable conversation about what it means. And I think the USDA standard or program for sustainability is the only one that we've ever seen that is actually quantifiable and that's understandable. And it seems like that one should be the one the federal government at least uses as the prime sustainability measure. So thanks for doing that, and thanks for doing it in a way that's understandable and quantifiable. And I think it'll be our job to take that to some of the other federal agencies as the primary measure. But my question is, there's a conversation within the greater water industry about additional ways to finance infrastructure, water infrastructure. One of the ideas is to expand the transportation program, which utilizes treasury bonds to fund water projects at low interest. And I would ask if you have any comments on the efficacy of that idea. And it's being portrayed as it wouldn't cost much because you'd just be extending treasury bonds. Is that accurate to the federal government, that this wouldn't be an additional cost? And if it wouldn't, why couldn't it just be extended to USDA right now in their existing program? And I apologize for any incoherency in that question.
You sure you don't want to ask a question of the doctor?
Oh, it's to the entire
He's feeling
panel.
lonely. No. You know what? I'm not really prepared to go into detail on that particular question. I think we're looking at all possible options at all levels on how we address the water infrastructure issue. It's clearly everyone understands it's important. Clearly everyone understands that there's going to be a need now and well into the future. So I think as we go through that process, anything and everything will be on the table for discussion. At the end of the day, I'm not sure where we're going to end up, but we'll be part of that dialogue.
And Mike, you were speaking specifically about tax-exempt financing for the guaranteed program, correct?
I was actually speaking about a new proposal for new legislation to extend the transportation program into the water program. But it would be interesting to hear from the economist, is there an opportunity cost to the government if you expand that authority into additional sectors, the water sector?
I'm not really sure how to answer that. So I think I'm going to have to pass on that. We can talk later, though, if you come up. We can meet later.
Question from here. I'm Randy Jinks from South Dakota. I manage a fairly mature rural water system. And as the water systems grow, what we found is all of the easy connections have been made over the last 20 years or so. And those folks that are out there at greater distances have just as much of a need for water as those that we've been able to get. Is there an understanding of that problem and any move of foot to assist us in providing water to those individuals, the remote users?
Right. We understand that there's a need to serve those remote users. We're trying to balance those needs with the needs of communities who are still at the beginning of their process. It's a shame, but there are still communities in this country who don't have good, clean drinking water or modern sewer service. And so as we look at our limited funds, we're trying to prioritize those. Certainly, we're always looking for ways to address issues like the one you've raised, and so we'll continue to look at those issues and see how best we can use our monies to address it. But right now, the backlog is full of projects that are addressing needs in other states that are not necessarily to those most remote users where the density is really low between users. But we've had this discussion, we'll continue to have this discussion offline. I know it's not unique to South Dakota, and I welcome it.
I have a question for Bob. Bob, I'm just curious if you have a second phase of your work just promoting the importance of the food industry in your state and how public water is a very key factor there. What I'm curious about in particular is if you may be working with them coming into your next legislative session, if any collaborative efforts have come out of this to partner with them and maybe use their resources as a collaborative effort to promote state legislators to continue to support and just get them updated. Anything coming as a second phase here? Is that anything that's been investigated?
What we've seen is that this idea basically opened the door for a lot of ideas and a lot of dialogue. It took a lot of the legislators by surprise that it was that big a industry or that big of a driver in the state of Tennessee, and so we're using that for continued dialogue. We've brought that up to other agencies along the way, both in state agencies as well as like-minded trade associations or like APWA, different things like that, to try to see if there's collaborative effort there. Our thought is that next year when we focus on the automotive side and then combine those two, it starts developing the building blocks of that rural water is really providing a significant economic engine to the state of Tennessee. That's when we'll go to it, but we're trying to reach out now to Chamber of Commerce folks and things like that along the way.
Making our way to the next question.
Jackie, this question is for you. We're finding that more and more towns are taking over other water and sewer districts, and the population issue has become a problem for those towns. Is there something underway that will increase it from the 10,000 population issue to be eligible for your loans and grants?
Can you repeat that one more time?
She's talking about the
Farm Bill.
The Farm Bill.
Yeah, and so there is a proposal in the Farm Bill that would change the overall definition of rural to 50,000, and that would impact this program as well. Not sure where that will end up in the long run. If that is the case and our definition changes, we would certainly adjust the program, but the priority points process that's in place now would stay in place. So communities that were smaller and had a greater need financially would still score well in those programs. What I would expect to see is larger systems that are more able to take on loan would take on loan. Certainly we would be looking at some of the larger communities possibly to go into our guaranteed program. We have some great guaranteed lenders, and we'd like to grow that program. So there would be an opportunity there for those borrowers.
This question is for Jackie. 1926B is hugely important to utility districts all across this nation. It was almost left out of this current farm bill, and the DC staff caught it and got it put back in. My question is, and we heard the economists talk about 80% of the people, or 80% of the land being rural, but obviously probably 80% of the population are urban. As we move forward into a more urbanized and less rural population, is protection of 1926B going to be more difficult to maintain in the future? And I'd just like your opinion about that.
Well, I think this was an unusual farm bill cycle in that they were trying to do some cleanup. Can you say that, Bill?
Yes.
Starting over from scratch, and I don't think it was intentional that it was left out. I think, quite frankly, there was a lot in the farm bill. So your staff did an excellent job of making sure that is there, because I know it's something that's very important to you. I don't know whether I don't see 1926B going away at this point. Again, as the agency's position is, it's really a protection that is there, and it's for you to have and to work out between cities and rural systems. It does help our portfolio in the long run, and so for now we hope that it stays in.
Moving to another question.
I'm Dan Kramer with Montana Rural Water. How do you approach industry that comes in the community that creates impacts like on waste streams, and they say, well, we're not going to build unless you help us out as far as the waste streams are coming in, it's going to create impact to your system, unless you have a shared responsibility for dealing with that. Let's say, and if you don't, then we're going to close the business up. We're not going to bring it in.
So I understand your question. How do you work with someone along those lines? Obviously, a lot of that would come through with your ECD department, be it the county or the state department. There comes a line when you have to maintain the integrity of your system and maintain the safety of your citizens. Dialogue and negotiation go a long way along that side. Quite honestly, just general observation, if that's an issue in your community, that's going to be an issue in the next community they go to as well. But at the end of the day, you have to take care of your customers as they are. But your state ECD office could give a big assistance in that regard.
Any more questions from the audience? Well, then I'm going to thank the panel and for their comments and interaction, and the administrator, John Padalino. So we want to thank all of them and thank you all for coming.